Josh Retro Dad. I just shot a video about Resident Evil 9, I talked about Rec Room, but we're going to talk about just gaming in general and kind of collecting trends before I start focusing on strange occurrences in other videos. I enjoyed the hell out of playing Resident Evil 9, but we're going to talk more about gaming, collecting, and prices after this. So last year, I went on a journey of getting every single NTSC North American Game Boy release. That was my goal. And someone asked me recently, how long did it take you? About a year, 2024 to the end of 2025. The last game I needed was Amazing Tater. The journey at Portland Retro Gaming Expo was all about getting Amazing Tater. Couldn't find it. I tried. I got Puzzle Boy 2, but it was not Amazing Tater, the North American release game. Recently, I went through and looked at the prices. I wonder if I could find another copy of it. It's been a while since I looked. And surprisingly, there was some on eBay. It was not $500. That's about the price Amazing Tater was going. Jumped up to $700 plus to $1,000. Not just one copy, but the 3 copies I found were all that price. So what happened? From a year, did Amazing Tater go from like a lower 400 to 550, about the price I paid for mine, to now almost $1,000. It became the most expensive North American original Game Boy game. It surpassed Spud's Adventure. It is the rarest retail licensed Game Boy game. But Amazing Tater now is the most expensive original Game Boy game. So that journey took me a year to complete that set. And I'm happy. Not very many people go for the Game Boy. Some people do. There are some people who go for the CIB versions of the Game Boy set, and that's a whole other beast too. Some of these boxes are so hard to get. You'll be scratching your head trying to find them. You might not find them at all. But let's talk about other games and the prices and what's going on with them. So recently I was watching the trends with Little Samson. I consider that the most rare, well, not rarest. I say it's really uncommon, very uncommon. There's rarer games like Dragon Fighter, Powerblade 2. I think there's a rarer than Little Samson. The Little Samson is on the rarer side. It's just very, 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 very uncommon. But that is the most expensive retail licensed game that was released in North America. Not counting Steam events. It's about $2,000 plus. Now, at one time, it was going up to $3,000, loose here, not CIB. But then it started dropping again. When I bought my copy, very low 1,000s, even below it. Then around the, excuse me, I had a cough there, phase of our lives, it jumped up. All the pandemic prices skyrocketed. But it has dropped a little bit, but it keeps going right back up. It seems to be holding that 2,000, 2,300. I thought at one time Dinosaur Peak was going to surpass it in price. It is a legit rare game, Dinosaur Peak, but I thought it was going to be a game that was going to shoot over the price of Little Samson. But that one actually dropped. It dropped so low, another game on the NES, the rarer, more expensive games, started shooting up past all these other games. They were actually even. In fact, it actually went over it. Powerblade 2. Powerblade 2 has jumped really far ahead of these other games. At one time, the 5 rarest licensed games, not counting save events, would have been Bonks, Powerblade, Panic, Restaurant, Dinosaur Peak, Little Samson. That would have been the 5. But Powerblade was usually the 5th one. It went Powerblade, Bonks, Panic, Dino Peak, and Little Samson. But something happened where Powerblade 2 jumped past Bonks, jumped past Panic Restaurant, went over Dino Peak recently. In fact, I think Dinosaur Peak finally surpassed it again. And we're talking about market value here. We're using price charting. We're going to use that as a gauging tool. We're not talking about private sales. We're not talking about you finding Dinosaur Peak at a garage sale for $15. The thing is, it was about a $7 or $10 difference where Powerblade 2 actually surpassed Dinosaur Peak for a while. It's a $1,000 game now plus. When I bought my copy, it was below $400. The NES, some of those games are dropping in price, but you have these rarer, more expensive games that are kind of getting out of reach now. If you have a game from 2013, $50, and now it's $200. Every year, inflation, it just keeps growing and growing and growing, right? It becomes out of reach at one point because it's so expensive now. I got a lot of my games when the prices were lower. In 2018, I bought 444 NES games for a fraction of the cost I spent from 2013 to 2017. I call it my first set before I sold. 2018, 444, 442 for a fraction of the cost. And I got some really good games. Talk a little bit about numbers, kind of example what I'm talking about. I had to open up my archive. I used to do my archive really well. When I was collecting originally like 2010 to 2017, I kept really good records. Only really the NES. Unfortunately, my Sega Genesis and Super Nintendo records, they weren't done as well, but the NES was. So let me go back to, if I could find it, 446 games, 2018. And here's the top 3 games I got that year. Mighty Final Fight, Panic Restaurant, and Wacky Races. In 2018, I bought 446 games with my total game count as 577 for the NES. But the next year I bought another 77 games and my count was 654. In 2019, I bought Bubble Bobble 2, again, with the manual, again, just like I did previously, Dragon Fighter and Gunneck. It wasn't until 2020 I got Powerblade 2, Bonk's Adventure, and Little Samson. I'm looking at my old video game price table by year rework. This was done Panic Restaurant 2017 down. And these are prices I paid for stuff, give or take $5, $10 sometimes. So let's go ahead and we'll talk about some of these games because I think I did shoot a video like this, but we'll go ahead and talk about it now. 2009, Double Dragon 3. CIB, $8. It is now $103, 2026. Talking about $90+, but look how many years since 2009. So you could do the calculations there. The Sega Genesis version of Double Dragon 3, the arcade game, is a crazy game. I got that high school, like I think maybe my senior year, junior year. Got this little game store used to be right up the street from my house. Man, do I miss that place. It was just this little tiny game store and they had so much stuff. And I look back, I don't remember if I ever bought Michael Jackson's Moonwalker there. I know they had it. I know they had the Spider Houses, but I didn't need the Spider Houses because I had them at my parents' house. Then they mysteriously vanished when I got all my games back in 2010. Don't know what happened to them. I had to rebuy those ones. But I always wonder if I ever got Michael Jackson's Moonwalker. I know I got Double Dragon 3. Maybe I thought about getting it, I just didn't get it. Just a little side note. Double Dragon 3 on the Sega Genesis is a crazy game. Let's do another one from 2010. I had Battletoads as a kid, but I had to rebuy it. It was one of the other games that were missing from 2010 besides those Spider Houses, Mario 2, and one other game was missing. In 2010, I got Battletoads for $6. Loose. When I was a kid, I think I got for $3 in the 90s. So right now, the loose Battletoads is $25.50. Jump down a little bit. Prices I got in 2011. A Boy and His Blob, $2.70. Adventure Island, $4. Back to the Future, $2.99. Bionic Commando, $2.70. It's now $14.97. So is that a huge leap from 2011? Not really, just over time and inflation. Go to a more of an expensive game. I wasn't really getting the expensive games, I think, until 2012. I was just getting games I'd bump into. We could do Metal Storm. Okay, let's do Metal Storm. In 2011, I got for $3 at Goodwill. I don't think it really counts because I think that was even low for then. Loose copy of Metal Storm today is a $142. Not a great example because I did get that at Goodwill. I'm glad I kept my records pretty well. I was even doing videos then. The beta stuff I was doing, the alpha stuff, was not this. The only one I really had that was done, 2010, was Take a Look Back, and was Mega Man Memories. Talking about Mega Man 1, 2, and 3. And that was lost in time. 2012. Bubble Bobble Part 2. This is 2012, $200. Today, $411. So $211 more dollars. Now, the reason I bought Bubble Bobble 2 back in 2012, I talked about before, I got an NES toaster model, a bunch of Nintendo Power stuff, inserts, and manuals, including Bubble Bobble 2. So I knew I had to get the game then. And at the time, it was more expensive than Little Samson. It was $200, but Samson I think was $125 or $150. Plus I knew Bubble Bobble 2 as I played that in college on an emulator. I never played Little Samson. Let's talk about Chip 'n Dale Rescue Rangers Part 2. I bought it for $98.97. And I love Chip 'n Dale Rescue Rangers Part 2. I prefer it over the original. I think it's a great game. It's now $397. 2026 versus 2012. DuckTales 2 I bought for $95 in 2012. Today, $308. Unlike Chip 'n Dale Rescue Rangers, I prefer the original DuckTales over Part 2, but Part 2 is a good game. All the doom and gloom about video game prices, look at the inflation and everything. Most of the games have a steady trajectory. Over time, it's going to go up, but games are scarcer. Even very common games are going to be more scarcer now because of time. These games were released 30 plus years ago, some of them. Some even longer. Some have been destroyed, some have been thrown away, thrown in landfills, looking at UET for the 2600, and other games too. Over time, it costs more money to get games. There are exceptions and outliers where some of these games have really jumped up in price, but most of them has to do with inflation over time. But there are some things going on with a little bit of market manipulation. That's one thing I can't explain it because the Amazing Tater just baffles my mind. The Game Boy is not as a popular system to collect for as, let's say, the NES. And the NES is old hat. I mean, it's been there for a long time, but most of us grew up with the NES, have kind of got what we wanted, us collectors, us hoarders of vintage nostalgia. Let's just say that. But most of us have our set. Most of us have the games we wanted. There are some new NES collectors coming out here. It does happen. I see them every once in a while with NES fan pages like, my collection, the new person's in the hobby. So it does happen, but not as frequently, let's say, the GameCube market now, or the PlayStation 2 market. Because those people are getting that age, or that was their childhood system. They have disposable income, or hopefully they do, and they can go out and start rebuying these games they had as a kid. Maybe they got rid of them, or they wanted other games they didn't experience. We'll probably talk a little more about the prices. If I can find the other video I recorded. I have receipts that I found recently too of like some of these games I bought for like $2.50. Oh right, I bought that for how much? Oh man, okay. And you find out the game's only $10 now, so it's not a big leap. But back then, our dollar stretched more, and it was easier to find these games. It's harder to find even common games these days for any system, 16-bit down it feels like. Well, this is Josh Retrodad. Have fun, go game, see you on my next video. If you like this type of content, if you mind subscribing, making a comment maybe. I have a lot more content coming, and see you guys on my next video.